Back on the Sports Zone, I am Mike Aglialoro. So we're going to talk some Knicks basketball real quick, and we're going to talk Phil Jackson's quest to bring the Knicks back to legitimacy, which of course stumbled right out of the gate with his first attempt at hiring a head coach. Of course, Wednesday night it was reported that Steve Kerr had wound up signing a 5-year, $25 million contract with the Golden State Warriors after weeks of speculation that he was Phil Jackson's guy to replace Mike Woodson as the Knicks head coach. Now, over the weekend, it looked like it was going to be a done deal. The holdup I had heard was over the contract. Apparently, the Knicks were balking at the idea of giving a first-time head coach $5 million a season. Now, obviously, the big headline out of all this is that Phil Jackson's credibility takes its first hit. But to me, this whole situation is a microcosm of a larger problem here. It's not that Phil Jackson's credibility was hit. It's that Phil Jackson's main problem in bringing anyone to New York is going to be having to overcome the stigma of what has gone with the Knicks as an organization for this entire century. Forget decade, we're talking century here. The Knicks as an organization have brought some of the most respected people in the NBA over the last 30 years to their knees. Guys like Lenny Wilkins, Larry Brown, and Donnie Walsh have all wound up leaving New York under some degree of a cloud of controversy. And as much as Phil Jackson is one of the most revered names in the NBA, forget 30 years, last 50 years, no question. The main problem that anyone coming into that organization is going to have to overcome is, do you really want to be associated with that type of a circus? Phil Jackson is supposed to end that circus. But the problem is the damage has been done to the Knicks' credibility as an organization. And that is Phil Jackson's number one problem in bringing anyone in to help change that. Now, I'm going to be honest, Steve Kerr has never been a head coach before. As much as that was supposed to be Phil Jackson's guy, this is not the worst thing in the world. The Knicks are not going to be led by a guy who has never proven whether or not he has what it takes to be a head coach in the NBA. The names that you've heard Phil Jackson is turning to next, he's sticking with the guys who are thought of as his guys, whether it be Luke Walton or Kirk Rambis or Tyronn Lue, Brian Shaw, who I don't think there's any chance of him coming to New York this season while he's still under contract with the Denver Nuggets. Everything went moderately well for him this season, and the Nuggets have no reason to let him go. And the last name you've heard is Bill Cartwright. Of course, he's been with Phil Jackson going back to the Chicago days. While all these guys have the rapport with Phil and are definitely in that mold of what he's looking for, which is supposedly first-time head coaches who he can have some sort of impact on, like Pat Riley did with Eric Spoelstra. To my way of thinking, though, the Knicks change as an organization needs more than a guy who's going to be a first-time head coach. The names that I would like to see in, if you could get Tom Thibodeau, and I've always heard rumors that there's a disconnect between him and the Chicago front office, which was particularly shown when Chicago traded away the guy that everyone knows is his favorite player, Luol Deng, middle of the season in what was thought of as a rebuilding mode. If you could get him, given the fact that he was a longtime Knick assistant under guys like Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy, going way back to the good old days, and he's definitely shown that he has the chops to be an NBA head coach. If you could get him, go for it. But to my way of thinking, at least in terms of availability, the head coach you should be going after is the guy who was let go of by the Golden State Warriors, Mark Jackson. He does bring that New York flair. He was a Rookie of the Year when he played with the Knicks, and he had a successful run with the Warriors. This was a team that was thought of as a joke. They did have Stephen Curry, and they did have Klay Thompson when he took over, but he helped develop these guys, and he turned that team into a playoff contender with the help of guys like David Lee and Andre Iguodala. He has the track record in a short amount of time, but it's still longer than Steve Kerr had. As far as the possible reasons why he may have left the front office, the fact is he was a first-time head coach, and he was coming into a situation that didn't have a lot of credibility beforehand. I'd like to think that he's learned a lot in terms of what you can and can't do in your position. And the difference between taking the Golden State job and taking the Knicks job is when he took the Golden State job, like I said, they were a joke. In New York, he would be coming in under Phil Jackson. Again, one of the most revered names in the NBA. As much as the Knicks themselves have been a joke, Phil Jackson is the Zen master, and he's not putting up with any type of crap, even if it is from someone like Mark Jackson. So I'd like to think if you put him in that situation, he's not going to approach it the way he might have when he took over the Warriors job. But again, to my way of thinking, this is not as much a hit on Phil Jackson's credibility as it is a statement of what Phil Jackson will have to overcome in his quest to take the taint off the Knicks after everything that has gone on, let's face it, since Patrick Ewing left New York. It's all been downhill from there, and it's an entirely uphill battle for Phil Jackson to have to climb. I heard Mike Francesa earlier today say that the head coach, in the grand scheme of things, is the third most important thing for Phil Jackson to worry about. It starts with the front office, it moves to the players, and the head coaches after that. To my way of thinking, because of everything that has gone on in the Knicks organization and what it is going to have to take to restore that team as an organization back to legitimacy, you may want to reconsider hiring a first-time head coach and bring in someone who can hold his own in the New York spotlight. As always, folks, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at WeAreSportsZone. Send us any questions and comments you may have. Vote on the polls we have up on ThisIsSportsZone.com. Thanks again for watching. As always, folks, I am Mike Aglialoro. We'll see you next time.